Hey guys, thanks for watching and welcome to the video. In today's video, we will be comparing shoot-through umbrellas to softboxes in a small home studio setting and also outside on an overcast day. I'll be adding some modifiers to the shoot-through umbrella as well to see if that makes it look closer to the look of a softbox. I will also have a bonus option at the end that may be better than both of them and won't cost you anything if you already have a flash. The next section is the intro. I will describe my setup, my methodology, and my motivation for doing this test, but if you'd like to skip all that, feel free to use the chapter markers to go to specific tests and results, or if you just like my takeaways, the conclusion is at the end. If you're like me, when you first got into photography, the first thing you saw and bought was a softbox. The first softbox I got was a Godox 3 foot by 2 foot with a rod style setup that took a lot of effort to put together and was unwieldy to use. I mean, once you had it together, it was fine, but putting it together is a pain. Ever since I've been looking for simpler solutions for lighting, and to be honest, I just like buying stuff and tinkering with it to see how it works and how different setups affect the end result. The more I've experimented, the more I think a lot of the gear acquisition syndrome we see in photography and experience, myself included, just doesn't make much of a difference to the end results. I wanted to document photos taken in a controlled environment as much as I can, with setups that are as close to identical as possible, for reference for myself and others, and hope it may help you make decisions on what you want to buy, and also what you want to bring with you for location shoots, both indoor and outdoor. I say that because the best gear is the gear you have with you, and I found myself on location with a small camera bag with a $10 32-inch shoot-through umbrella that folds down to 10 inches most of the time. You can break it down and fit it in a bag, something you can't do with even the fastest setup softboxes. There's just no room in a bag for a 28-inch all-in-one softbox, but there is room for a 32-inch shoot-through umbrella with a small mount. So for the sake of clarity, I'm doing this experiment. We will see what a shoot-through umbrella and a 28-inch softbox looks like in a studio space that is 10 foot by 9 foot with white walls. We will do this with both constant light and flash to see what difference, if any, it makes to the results. I have white balanced all the pictures to look the same, and have matched exposure using the center point between the eyebrows of the mannequin as the measuring point. I've reduced the exposure of the camera down enough to where we're able to see just the added light we're using in the frame. So basically I start with a black frame, I take a picture of that, make sure no light is entering, and then add light to it so that you can see just what the light is doing. So the ambient light in the room will not be affecting what you see. You're just seeing the effect that the actual flash that I'm using, or the constant light that I'm using, has on the picture. And that's important because if you don't do that, you really can't isolate what the difference is between what just happens to be in the room and the settings of your camera and the light that you're adding. So we're going to isolate it to make it as simple as possible and as easy to document as possible, and know what the differences are in the modifiers that I am using. The indoor shots were all taken at ISO 100 at f8 at 1/8 second shutter speed using a Sony ZV-E10 crop camera and a 45mm 1.8 Samyang lens, which equates to about a 6 to 8mm focal length in full frame terms. I do have a full frame Sony a7 III as well, but have found little crop camera a little easier to work with on tests like this, and it has a flippy screen, which can be convenient. The slow shutter speed allowed me to get a similar exposure for both the constant light and flash shots, so that's why I set the shutter speed that way. I've also done a smaller scale experiment outside using just flash, since constant light isn't a reasonable option for me in run and gun outdoor situations, so I didn't see any reason to test it. For the outdoor experiment, we will have just a Godox V1 attached to the same umbrella at maximum stem length and the same Godox 28-inch softbox that we're using for the indoor tests. The Godox V1 in all of these experiments is set to a maximum wide angle of 28mm. For reference, I also included an ambient only shot with auto ISO for comparisons to the flash shots outdoors, so you can see what it looks like if you just used natural light. I kept the light stand constant and just mounted each modifier in turn to capture these shots. So that's my thought process. Feel free to jump around using the chapter markers below, and let's get started. Okay, the first set of pictures we are going to look at is using constant light. So the first one is going to be softbox with a constant light source in it, a 100 or a 60 watt cob light for both of them. In a 8x9 room, white walls. So this basically gives you what's interesting is that it gives you more contrasty look, even with 2 layers of diffusion, than a single layer umbrella. And I believe the reason for this is just that you're bouncing stuff off the walls, and that's helping to fill stuff in. But again, this is a $10 umbrella versus like a $160 fancy softbox with multiple layers of diffusion and all that. And I would say there's a strong argument, if you're just looking for nice soft light, then in a studio setting with white walls, small room with stuff bouncing all over, that you get a nice fill with it. You see how much softer on the neck. You can see how much like this fall off is much softer. If you want a more contrasty look, obviously the umbrella isn't going to be the move, but if you are okay with not having a super contrasty look and basically not having to control your light in terms of darkness and stuff, it looks great. And you also will get a darker background with the softbox as well. The softbox is also, let's see between the two. So this is a matching exposure on the face. I just measured like between the eyebrows, so you can see about what about the same exposure on the face versus what it does to the rest of the picture. But you can see also, and I guess this is probably obvious that this would happen, but with a softbox, you're not going to get as much light on the wall because you're not getting light bouncing, through the bounce through umbrella back behind you off the walls, all that kind of stuff too. So if you want less light in the wall, that would be another downside. But really, I would argue that it's a more pleasing look with a shoot through umbrella. Again, a $10 cheapo shoot through umbrella than it is for an expensive softbox. So that just goes to show you don't need a lot of money. You can do an $80 flash and a $10 umbrella and a $10 adapter to put it on, throw it on a light stand, and you're good to go. That's enough lighting for most people, plenty to get started. And I find myself a lot of times that's what I use and I like to bring with me. So I kind of wanted to test it and see what I'm really missing out on when I'm not using the softbox. Okay, our next comparison is the softbox. You doing the softbox with constant light versus versus softbox with flash. And the reason I did this is because, again, just wanted to know, really, is there any difference if you use constant light versus using flash? Do they inherently have a different look to them, or can you basically get the identical look out of constant light as you can with a flash? Obviously, there's going to be downsides to both. I mean, it's really nice with the constant light to see exactly what you're doing. That being said, they're not nearly as powerful, so you have to either be raising ISO or lowering your shutter speed a lot to accomplish the same results. So, just pros and cons for both. I find myself using flash in most situations. It makes the most sense, but I want to know, are they identical? If you set all the other things the same, the exposure and the situation and the modifier and everything, or is it the same thing? And as far as I can tell, it pretty much is. So, so we're looking at number 1 and number 3. You can see, I think that you get basically identical results. Now, later we're going to see in the umbrella, you don't always get identical results. You actually seem to get a little bit more light bouncing around the room with an umbrella. But in a controlled situation where you're just using a softbox and you're not having as much light bouncing all over the place, it really accomplishes pretty much exactly the same results. It's slightly, which one is this? So the flash is a little bit warmer for the background. You can see that I adjusted the white balance so that the faces are the same, but you can still see it in the background. The flash is slightly warmer, but I mean, it just depends on the light you get. Some are a little bit warmer, some are a little bit colder. But I think functionally you can see it's pretty much identical. So I think if you can give yourself the kind of situation where you've got your lights set up in a way where you've got enough light, assuming you can accomplish the same exposure. Basically, you can use constant light or you can use flash and accomplish exactly the same thing. So that might be an argument for one or the other, depending on what you want to do. Okay, this is another interesting one. Using a shoot-through umbrella, we are going to look at the difference between the constant light and the flash. You can see here, so I matched the exposure on the face to both of them, but the flash, this one is the one with the flash, does not have as much light bouncing around the room. So you have the same amount of exposure in the center of the forehead, but you can see you get a more contrasty type of look here along the neckline and around the side of the face, where with the constant light, you see the fall off is much more gradual and it's softer on this side of the face. And I believe that's because the constant light is always, it's constantly on. So it's already like a flash is just in that moment of time, but this is creating this ambiance by bouncing all the lights off of the walls. So you're actually getting more of the ambient light in the shot. Basically all of the, not ambient light in the shot, but basically there's pre-existing bounce light already happening from every direction, where with the flash there isn't as much. That's the only thing that makes sense to me on it. So just know, if you're doing this in a small room and you are using constant light, you're more likely to get a lot of that light in the picture. Not a big deal if that's what you're going for, if you want the soft kind of look. But if you are looking to do something where you create more contrast, or you want a darker background and you want to really control the light more, it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that with constant light. So that was something interesting that I learned about it. Okay, we're going to look at a couple more here. So these are two pictures that are taken using flash, and these are both with the shoot-through umbrellas, and one of them is using a diffusion cup basically over the top of the flash, which the reason I tested it this way was, for one, I wanted to see how much light you lose doing it that way, and two, I wanted to see if you got a softer light, because in theory you're putting a diffusion cup over the top of your flash, and then so it's diffused, and then you're hitting your umbrella and it's diffusing it more, so two layers of diffusion and softer light in theory, right? So I put the diffusion cup over my Godox V1, and then shot that through and did the same thing, and then balanced the exposures for both of them and looked at what the difference was. So two questions: to get the same exposure, how much more light do you need to put through it? And two, do you get any kind of softer light as a result of diffusing it again? So this is what you're looking at. You can barely tell the difference. It is interesting. So number 4 and number 5, you guys probably can't see that, but it helps me to keep track of it. So this is the first one, and this one is without the diffusion cup. This is with the diffusion cup. You can see with the diffusion cup, you get slightly more light in the background. So you're getting a little bit more diffusion. It's bouncing around. I measured it. It's only about a 3% difference. It changes your your tint slightly, but I think the important part to me is if you look at the face. So in theory, if you have 2 layers of diffusion, you would think that you're going to get a lot softer fall off. But if you look between the two, they basically look identical. So my takeaway was that the diffusion cup, like for me, for the V1, the magnetic one that goes over the top of it, and then shooting it through the umbrella, not really worth the bother. But the next one is a lot more interesting. Okay, so check this one out. So number 4, again, flash, shoot through umbrella. I'm not doing these with the softbox, because softboxes basically already got this look. So we're just looking at the shoot through umbrellas. So with number 4, just a regular shoot through umbrella, flash directly pointed at it, 24 millimeter, length on my flash, and this is how it looks. And number 6, it's interesting. So this is something I haven't seen anybody else do, and I'm kind of excited I stumbled upon it. Maybe somebody else did. No, I'm not claiming it. I'm just saying it's something that I figured out by myself, and I've been really interested in the results with it. So number 6 is taking a little mini softbox you can get. I bought one, came in a kit that I got. Then you can get some from AliExpress for just a few dollars a piece. Basically a little mini softbox. I'll put some B-roll here that shows it. But basically you put that softbox over the top of your flash, and then you shoot that through your umbrella. And when you do that, you get this. You get For one, you get a more even light, I believe, across the face. It's less contrasty. Um, you see here, this is, yeah, so this is with, you see how dark and light, and it immediately gets super dark. See here, there's a more gradual fall off. I would argue it's more pleasant. See, this spot on the head is where I dropped the mannequin at one point. You can see, like, it's just, you can see how different. It's dark, it's light, it kind of creates the sunny spot here. See how much more gradual the light is here, and how much more, in my opinion, in most situations, more pleasing. So you still have the contrast to give you depth, but it's a softer, more gentle fall off here. If you do this, you lose almost a stop of light, because you're basically going through this other softbox, and then you're going from that into another layer of diffusion. But I think this is more of a real 2-layer of diffusion than the cup, which basically barely does anything. I mean, now that I've really taken a look at this stuff, realize the cup barely does anything. So if you want to have a double diffuse look while you're using a umbrella, I would highly recommend that you do it with using another layer of true diffusion, with which I think, I mean, I haven't done a million different versions of it, but essentially comes down to using some kind of diffusion material, not plastic, but like in this situation, it's just that some kind of diffusion material, not plastic, basically. I forget what they call it, but any of those, even just, the cheap little saw boxes seem to do a good job. So I like the look of that. I like how different it is. I also like, especially in this small space, how it gives a creamier feel to the background. I like the color that it gives you when the face is properly exposed as well. So I would argue that I like the look of this better. And I was also surprised that I thought when I put a softbox on the front of my flash, and then I pointed that at an umbrella, that I was going to get a small area, because basically it goes, you've got your softbox on top of a flash, and then especially the 32-inch umbrellas, they're not that long, so it's almost on top of the umbrella at that point. But what I found was that little softbox is spreading light so far, it still fills out the umbrella. So it does a great job of not creating a small light source. You get a larger light source, which we all know is a softer light source. So was really surprised, and I really like how it looks, and I'll probably use it in situations where I'm going to be doing portraits, and that I don't need as much light as possible, because it does use, about a stop of light more. So it's something to consider if you're thinking about doing it that way. Okay, so now we've got the softbox. So this is a softbox, one of the original pictures that we took with flash on it. And this is flash with an umbrella, but using that additional modifier, that little mini softbox, and again in an 8x10 room with white walls. So what I was surprised to find is that, again, I measured the faces, the exposure is the same in the middle of the face. But with the softbox, you're going to get a more contrasty feel to it, and to me, it's not as pleasing to the eye. And I say this not to, it doesn't matter, if you like the look, then that's great too. But for anybody just getting started, the idea, oh, I got to buy a softbox and I got to buy all this expensive stuff. I mean, what you need with the umbrella is probably less than $30 plus the flash, where most, you can spend a good amount, 50, 100, you can spend $200 on a softbox easily. And if you just want to practice in a small space, you can get this look, which I would argue is better, with a $3 modifier that is on your flash, and then a $10 shoot-through umbrella that folds down super tiny. You can keep it in your camera bag. And then like this $10 mount that goes onto a $10 or $20 light stand, and you're in a good place. And even if you don't have the money to pay for that, have somebody hold it, or hold it yourself to the side. And it's just a super nice, easy way to be able to affect the light. I mean, the pictures speak for themselves. I mean, I would take this picture over this picture just about any day, unless I was trying to do something super contrasting. And if I was, I probably wouldn't have the white background. I'd have a black background and be trying to make it dramatic. But If you just, you want to take pictures of your friends or family, or you just want to kind of get started doing headshots, things like that, I think the look of this is a lot more what people would be looking for than the look of this. This is a little bit more dramatic. So I think there's a lot of value in maybe just looking at that. Hey, real quick, just so we can see them next to each other. This is the shoot-through umbrella with the diffusion cup, and this is the shoot-through umbrella using the mini softbox. Obviously, you got to use you lose more light. A third of the stop versus almost a full stop if you do use the mini softbox on it. But I would argue it's pretty obvious this is a much nicer look. It's a lot more gentle light, kind of creamier look. If you don't use that, you might as well just not use anything. I don't really see. I've got a couple of those diffusion cups, and I just don't see that they really have a lot of value after doing these the photos this way. I would argue you're better off just, if you need to just do it, throw it on there with the umbrella and the mount, and shoot the flash through it, or take the time through it, and it just takes a couple of minutes to throw on one of those little soft boxes onto your flash, and to get a more diffused look as well. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do that. Okay, so this is the part I'm really excited about. I was pretty blown away by the results here. So if you go outside, look at what happens. So this is 10. This is using flash with a softbox. And I've reduced the ambient light enough to where you can basically see it in the background, but this is just the exposure from the flash itself. There's not enough sunlight for it to affect the photo at all. So it's not like the ambient is just making the flash irrelevant. This is your exposure using mostly your flash as the light, not ambient light. So this is the flash with the softbox. This is flash with the umbrella. Outdoors, without having walls and stuff to bounce things off of, I mean, look at it. They're just about identical. I don't think the second layer diffusion is really doing much of anything. And because it doesn't, so the directionality happens in a softbox because it's directing light in a certain way in a room with walls, so it doesn't just bounce all over the place. But outside with umbrella, you don't have any walls to worry about. It just dissipates on the side if you don't make use of that light pointing directly at your subject. Okay, so now we're going to look at, these were the two that we looked at before, and this is 12. Not that matters to you, but basically with more ambient light, you can see, I just put this in here to show you the other pictures are not just what the ambient happens to look like. You can see that because this is a shot that also includes ambient, and the light looks a lot different when you actually add the ambient light on it. So just to help show you, these two are definitely light that is provided almost exclusively by the flash, and this is one where you are mixing flash with the ambient light. So basically just to show you that the results that I'm showing you are a direct result of the flash and the modifier that we're using. And then add in number 13. So this is just, if you're sitting here thinking, who cares, it's outside, why would you even need to add the ambient light? Obviously, this was like an overcast day, so it looked pretty nice out. Why would you even need to bother with any of this? Maybe you just do a little bit of fill flash. Who cares, So that last one that I showed you kind of tells you why, because if you want like a more contrasty, you want more directional light, you want to control it more, it does make sense to decrease your ambient exposure and then add this in. In addition to it, you can get a lot more light control. And also you can see here, so this is just the picture you're seeing on the screen is just, if I just took an ambient shot and I adjusted it for the same exposure, this is what it looks like. You get a little bit of contrast, but it's pretty flat. Not the best looking photo. So again, this is the softbox with flash. This is the umbrella with flash. This is adding a little bit of flash to an ambient, and this is just ambient. So I would argue that the ambient is by far the worst looking photo, and part of it is because with that sun, I mean, this was an overcast day, so this is about one of the best ways that you could ask for in terms of the way that the light was coming across everything. But you still see, you get a little bit of the raccoon eyes, because the light's coming from above. There's not much contrast. There's not much fall off. It's a very flat, boring looking photo. So to me, it's an argument for, even on a day, I mean, if you're run and gun, there's only certain things that you can do. But if you're out on a little bit more overcast day and you're posing people, I still would say, based on the results here, it's worth toning down the ambient light and adding in your own to get the kind of feel that you want in the photo and to sculpt the features of your subject in the way that you want it to, because it just looks better. So not that we'll always have time to do it, but I myself, after doing all this, I verified for my own use that it is worth taking the time to do these things, that they have value, that it's not just a bunch of wasted light and using doodads just for the sake of it, but it really does make a difference in terms of the final product and the lighting that you get for your subject. Okay, so I said we would have a bonus, and there is a bonus here. I'm going to show you guys. Okay, so a lot of people know about bounce flash in a vague way, but I would, and you even hear people talk about that it's undervalued, that people don't know enough about it, people don't use it. I mean, you'll hear little allusions to it, but I wanted to show you this as an example. So one of the things that makes bounce flash different is the inverse square law. So the inverse square law, for those that don't know, the only part that's relevant really here is that the closer you are to the subject, the more the faster the light fall off is. So that'll give you the more contrasty look. So you go from, because it's more powerful, the closer you are, it falls off incredibly quickly at a close level. But as you move further back, it's more even. Well, when you're bouncing it off the corner, the back corner, and then it comes back, well, by the time it goes all the way back there, comes back, however many feet, 3 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, whatever, you have a much more gradual fall off. And that's why on the face here, the face and the background are very similar in exposure. This is probably, I'd say probably, this is the brightest the background has looked. And the reason for that is because in order to get the face exposed properly, I have to add about 3 stops more of light. I shoot it towards the behind me and up, but in the corner, so that you're basically doing Rembrandt style lighting is the idea, but you're doing it with this gigantic spot up in the corner. So, and when you do that, whatever the size, so when this took me a while to get my head around it. So if you were to shoot a small beam, like if you took your flash and you turned it down to 105 millimeters and you shot it at the top right hand corner, well, now your source is whatever size that is by the time it gets there, so it'll be a small beam. But if you take your flash and you make it a 24 millimeter and you shoot it up at the corner, and the effective size is whatever, 3 feet or 6 feet across by 6 feet or whatever it is, you effectively, you're going to color it by whatever that is. So that's part of the reason why having whatever color you want. I mean, in my position, I'd say that a pure white is going to be the best thing. But if you can shoot it into a wall that is the color that you want it, and you can get it behind you and up and to a corner, it really doesn't matter what corner, just depending on what size you want your light to be from. In this situation, I was shooting the opposite. So like my modifier was on this side for most of the shots. In these, it was pointed this way, up into the corner and then back down. But when you do that, you're creating like a Rembrandt style lighting, but you're doing it with this gigantic light source. And that's where you're getting, so you have to use a lot more power, but when you do, you get this buttery, creamy, smooth fall off. Because again, at this point, you've got a large source, so it's soft, And because it's had to travel so far, it's this really gradual fall off, which creates this really nice ambience. And it's also really nice for how it gets the background. Like this would be a really great exposure if you needed to do some kind of like a corporate, headshot kind of thing. It's just beautiful lighting. And you don't have to buy anything to do it this way. You don't have to buy modifiers. You don't have to buy anything. You can just use this the way that it is with your flash in a room with the right color walls and not have to buy anything. And it looks just absolutely beautiful, I think. But there are two pictures here, so I'm going to tell you why. I did find this interesting. So this one, I'm sure I'm not telling you wrong. Yeah. So this one is if I shoot it into the top left-hand corner, just bare bulb and come back. And this one is with the mini softbox on it. So you do lose like another half stop of light doing it this way. I don't know why you lose less on this than you did in the with the umbrella, but that's what it ends up being. But you can see here you see this, the fall off here compared to this, it is a little bit softer. I would argue not really important. It's already so soft, it doesn't matter, but you can still see with the softbox, you do get a little bit more of a gradual fall off. So if you wanted that, you could add it, but you're losing a lot of light at that point. But I would argue that it's even a little softer and a little bit more appealing if you were to use it that way. Okay, so my takeaways. In a small indoor space, the shoot-through umbrella has a lot of benefits and is pretty close in quality of image to the softbox unless you're going for a more contrasty image and need more light control. You can functionally get the same picture out of constant versus flashlight, using flash as your light, except on a shoot-through umbrella, that bounces light everywhere in a smaller room and will color your background more with the light bouncing off the walls. So unless you want a very contrasty, moody picture, which is definitely a thing I want sometimes, the umbrella will do just fine. But you can't throw a grid on an umbrella, so it's about having the right tool for the job. If you want a black background, for instance, in a small room with light colored walls, the umbrella would not be a good choice. Outside, where there's nothing to bounce off of, the softbox and shoot through look almost identical. Back to the inside with white walls, a bounce off the top corner on either side can offer you incredibly soft light if you need that style. It's like having a huge softbox behind you, and depending on the style of photography you do, it may be all you need. Will I be getting rid of my softboxes and just using umbrellas? No. But this has further cemented my idea that for a travel run-and-gun kit, a shoot-through umbrella mounted on a handle is a great option and functionally loses nothing to a softbox. And you don't have to worry about messing it up or breaking it or leaving it or whatever. They're so cheap, it's really not a big deal. I feel like shooting like in a park, for instance, carrying around a heavy light stand with a softbox is pretty silly. You can do the same thing with an umbrella. You can either mount it to a light stand or handhold it. The only reason you would want to maybe not do that would be if you were worried about the wind. The softbox is going to be a lot better in the wind, and the umbrella is basically a sail. If you're not careful and it's windy, it'll go for a ride on you. If you need a better angle, you could even have someone else hold it for you if needed to be safe. So assuming you got somebody there to help, maybe that's how you get away with using the umbrella even if the weather isn't perfect. So anyway, I did this a lot for me, but also I'm hoping that this is helpful to other people to help document these things. I hope this has helped you. It has helped me understand these modifiers better, how they affect light, and in what situation I want to use each one of them. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and follow if you would like to continue to see videos where I try to make sense out of what matters and what doesn't in the world of photography. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff where I test things and post the results. Mostly stuff I'm doing anyway for myself to understand it, and I'm hoping that this reaches other people, that it helps as well. So anyway, I will stop rambling. I thank you for watching. I appreciate any thoughts that you have. I mean, we're just getting this started, so I'm not pretending I'm perfect or I've done anything right. If you have suggestions for how we could do things better here, or tests you'd like to see in the future, feel free to put them below. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much.